Hi, I'm Dr. M. Kamakshaya. I'm an open source software evangelist, full stack developer, and a freelance academic of data science and analytics. I've been filming for the past few demonstrations as how to write the Python programs for various needs of data science and analytics. In my previous sessions, I've explained how to understand data types, data structures, different types of operators, loops and conditional statements. I mean control flow, and I also explained just before this video. I explained a peculiar concept called list comprehension, and I'm just going to continue the list comprehension in this video. You have beautiful documentation related to this list comprehensions in Python documentation. You have to go to the, I'll show you, this is Python documentation. They're existing right now. Python version is 3.8. This is a recent version. Now we have the tutorial. In this tutorial you can search for list comprehension. Here you have the concept. The same example squares I explained in my previous video, but in a different fashion. You see here, if you look at the, this example deals with the same activity, that is squaring the elements in a given list. Suppose if you want to square the elements in a given list, then using for statements like a basic approach, you need to do the task in 3 different steps. First you need to initiate a list, and then use the for loop for every element in a given input data. This is range is actually, see here in this documentation, range is used as an input data, and for each element you are going to square it, and those processed elements will be saved in this container called squares. At the end you can know what is there inside the squares by simply executing this command squares. Now squares is actually a list. Okay, I did it differently by using a kind of variable called x, in which you have some data points, something like that. Same activity you can also do by using list comprehension within a single statement. That is what is the advantage of the list comprehension. So I explained everything in my previous video. The intention behind this video is to explain the same concept, but a bit differently, using some additional functions called reduce, map and filter. So these reduce, map and filter are known as functional operators, or maybe functional operations, something like that. Whenever you write a definition in programming, we call it as a function. A definition in Python it is called definition, but in programming the community it is called as a function. A function is it may be an inbuilt function or maybe a user-defined function. So whenever someone wanted to write the UDF, user-defined function, in Python, then you need to follow a convention. Now I'm going to define a function, and this function is going to just process elements in a given list. Element-wise processing in a given list, and that process is going to be some, say, square. Okay, return, and you can also press enter there and then square. Now whenever we have a function like this, we need to use this function in our, this is just whenever we write the function, there will be a definite intention behind it. So what is the definite intention? That intention might be some kind of activity, just like I am going to square the elements, and squaring the elements is the intention behind this function. So now I'm going to process some data, because whenever I have the definition, I need to, so which means I have an intention, and that intention leads to doing a kind of, there is a process behind that intention, something like that. Now I'm going to create a data. I just use linear number series till 5, because it is very easy to understand. So I can also simulate data so that we can have random numbers, and that's a different thing. Okay, now suppose I want to square them. So before going to process this, let me do this activity. Let me test this function. Suppose if I give 2, now it is going to be 4. In the same fashion, if I give 3, then it's going to be 9. So now I am going to give 4, and it's going to be 16, obviously, right? Now suppose if I want to do the same activity on x. Now what is this x? X is a list. So it is not a single element, it is a group of elements. Now you see, you'll get the error. This is actually the problem in it's not a problem actually. We defined our function in such a way that whenever we give an element, it is just going to return the square. So in the same fashion, you can also define a function. Now I call this as f1. Now here I will give 2 elements, and now the intention of this function is going to have the addition. Okay, now so that it is easy for me to explain the functional operations. Now let us implement this function by issuing 2 values. Now obviously you are going to get 6. The addition of the 4, the 4 plus 2 yields 6, something like that. Now let us test once again. This time I will give you 6, and obviously the result will going to be 8, right? Now let me use this on a list of elements. Now it's going to give error. So why it is happening? Because when we are doing it in the console, element by element, like whenever we give some, so this function is defined such a way that there will be only one single argument, which means only one data elements need to be supplied in order to get the result. So that is how this definition is defined. Suppose if I want to perform the same square function on a list of elements, then I need to make use of for loop. Just like in my previous video, I've done everything. You just have to go to my previous video to see how to write a function. It's not a function exactly, but how to use a for loop in order to square the elements. Now anyway I have a function in order to square the elements. Why not I make use of this? So instead of just going again and defining a function that makes square, and then I have some list, something like that, instead of doing this, anyway I have my function here and it is going to do some squaring. Now how to make use of this existing function instead of writing a new function on this list? Now it is not possible for us to use the same function, because we have seen here when I gave a list as an input, now this function f throw error, so it is not going to happen. For that reason, we have, in order to solve that problem, we got beautiful ways to do this. Now be careful when I'm talking about the functional operations. Now I'm going to talk about this. There are 3 different functions useful for this kind of situations. The first one is going to be the map. Okay, you can I don't know whether you have it or not in Python documentation. You can just go there and search for map. Yeah, I don't have. You have reduce? No. You have filter? No. So you have quite a few. You don't need to get it. I think you should be having somewhere. You can search Python documentation, map, reduce and filter. So let's see. I don't know. Yeah, you have documentation. So go to this map, reduce and filter. I'm going to talk, this is actually some kind of documentation. This is a book, and I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter, like today you have everything online, you don't need to worry. Now you see here there are quite a few examples. Now the same example is given here. Now this is actually the classical way of writing a definition, or maybe solving this problem of element wise operation. So now if your objective is element wise operation, then you can create this same activity by using map function, but please be cautious, it is a single element workout, so you cannot do things to do that. You can make use of map, and then you can so map is, first let me tell you, I wanted to, so imagine that I don't know anything about map is a Python based reserved statement, Python based function. So when you use this help map, then you are going to get some kind of this is what is the syntax for your map statement. Now the problem is it is going to give the map object, but it don't give you the elements, the output. So let's see that map. So we need to give some function. I already have my function, that is f, and then I got x. So let's see. Yeah, it does some work, but whereas this is not the results. Okay, in order to get the result, we need to use the list function along with map. Now what I do, I just make use of p, Alt P, and then list. Now you see you'll get the result. Same thing. So same thing that which you can achieve by using the for loop. Now the same activity, suppose I also have the function f1. So now let me go and use f1. I don't know I get it or not. Yeah, of course. Now the function f1 has a syntax x comma y. It is not a single element operation, but whereas you need a couple of elements. Now since we have a syntax for map, let us do the same activity on f2. We fail. So let's see. And f1, not f2, I'm sorry. File, it gives you an error because map is meant for single element wise operation over a iterable data structure. Now since the list is a collection of data elements, so map works. I mean if your intention is a single element element wise operation, then you can make use of map, and it is not possible for, since f1 require two different arguments like x comma y, you are not going to use, your map fail. You see here f1 missing one required position argument y, because the map is useful only to process one single element at a time. So these are all iterable functions, map, filter and reduce. If that is your need, like you want to go for two different, you want to perform the action on different elements, then perhaps you need a particular function called reduce. And now coming to the point, reduce is not going to process the elements. It processes the couple of elements as in tuples. Since we have let's use the reduce. Now I need to import the reduce. Import reduce from form tools, import reduce. Now let us use reduce for the first let me use the help function. Let's imagine that we don't know anything. Let's read some documentation for reduce. Now we see reduce function same way as map. It is just like map. You can make use of function as a first argument and then iterables. Now just like a sequence or something like that. Now we have an iterable x and we have a function f, but whereas the function f require only one single argument. Now let us go ahead and see that. Reduce my function f and x are going to fail, and there is an error here. F takes one position arguments whereas two were given, because x has more than one element in it, and reduce is expecting, the f is expecting one single element. Reduce is a function which is meant for a couple of arguments, not for the single argument. That is why you are getting the error. I think it might look like a bit difficult for you, but what is happening here, actually you cannot use reduce where you must use map. Map is meant for element wise operations, and reduce is meant for inter-elemental processing. Like you need to have more than one single argument to reduce. So the entire purpose of using reduce tend to be different when it is compared with map and filter. Filter I meant to talk. So now in which situation do we need to use reduce? So that is what I'm going to talk. Now we have f1, and f1 is all about I think this is a function. Now let us go for, I didn't create a help doc for, anyway, so this is what is the syntax for f1, which we just know. So it requires to, now let us make an aggregate. Let us use reduce as an aggregate function in order to square the elements. Now let's see what's going to happen. Now when I use reduce and f1, this time we are not going to fail, because you'll get a particular result. An aggregate result is actually an aggregate figure of the elements 1 to 6. What happened here? Now the reduce is trying to sum up the values. You see the sum of the, because f1 is a sum of the values, and it is an inter-elemental operation. You see 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, something like that. 1 plus 2 3, 3 plus 3 6, 6 plus 4 10, 10 plus 5 15. So this function is being applied over this, and now not as a single element but as in tuples. Now first 1 and 2 is considered for the operation. Now you might be getting a question like, why not we go for the multiplication? Let us define that. Def, now I call f3, then I give x comma y, and then return x multiply y. So you can also take x to the power of y or something like that. Now this time let us go for the same function, see if we can do that or not. You get the answer. Now what is happening here? 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 4 is 24, 24 times 5 is 120, something like this. Now whenever you are going to use the reduce, it is not only the multiplying the elements, and at last it just multiply the elements, like the one x multiply y, and now it becomes x, and now that x become multiplied by 3, and now that becomes x, and that result again will be multiplied with 4, and again. So something, this propagation is going ahead. So now the reduce is not a single element wise operation, but it processes a couple of elements as in tuples, or maybe in list. I don't know whether it is a tuple or a list inside, but you need 2 different elements, and it is going to give you not by the element. You are not going to get 1 square, 2 square, 3 square. So it will sum up, either it multiply, either divide, or something happens. Now in the same fashion, you can also make to the power of x to the power of y. You can create a function x to the power of y, x divided by y, and then you can do. So whenever you are going to use radius, and it is going to give you an aggregate value, but in map you are not going to get like that. Map, what happens, it performs the particular, it processes each and every element, and the result of the process also will be a list of elements. It is not going to be the aggregate. Now to aggregate things, you can use reduce. Now reduce is reduce needs a function. Now let us multiply the things. I will use maybe I can use f1, add the things. Okay, add elements which are inside, which are the squares, map f x. Now what is going to happen here? First we are squaring each value in x, and then that list is used to sum of the values, and the result is going to be the sum of the squares. This is what is the crux of the regression in statistics. Okay, so this process you should know, because I mean, whenever I talk about these basics, and people might get what is going on here, but each and everything that whatever you do as a part of basics is going to have some significant role in future learning. So when we are learning correlation or regression as a statistical techniques, we do depend on this sum of squares and sum of multiply. Sometimes we aggregate the values by summing, sometimes we aggregate the values by multiplying, sometimes we aggregate the values by summing and simultaneously squaring, or squaring and simultaneously summing. So these basics are very, very essential in order to get ahead in data science and analytics. Thanks for watching this video. I didn't explain you filter. In my next video I will explain you how to deal with filter. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the new content, and press subscribe button if you like my videos. Thanks.